Hurt, featuring Zach Gray. From Midas, album Hurt from 2021. Hey, I'm listening to something almost recent. I'm Aurian Archive, and we're picking back up with another build theory. And the next one is a build I've actually already done. And that is a Sonic Kin or Kinetic Sonic Defender. So, since I've already done a Kinetic Sonic before, I kind of already have an idea, excuse me, of what I'm looking for, how this is going to work, what stat levels the build can achieve. In this case, this is a recent build because I'm already using artillery. I'm already using preemptive optimization. So this already has everything slotted exactly how it probably should go. So let's see what happens when we turn it into a corruptor. This may not necessarily be pretty. Alright, let's bring the window up so we can see what we're working on. Get our work window stationed right. And we're going to start off with, on the Sonic attack, we took everything but Screech. Now, why did I skip Screech? Well, it's a minor damage stun, and that's it. For a tier 8 primary power, minor damage doesn't cut it. Its base damage on a Corruptor is only 16.68. Now, if it was 168.00, then we can start talking. But for a tier 8 power, no. This Sonic is one of those attack sets that is badly balanced, and the developers will tell you, or the live developers, Cryptic and then Paragon said, well, because Sonic attack does minus resist, we can't make it any more powerful. Bull! Let me repeat that. Bull! Now that your eardrums have recovered, I will attempt to be more polite. The developers were full of it. Sonic Attack is underperforming, period. And the basic reason for this is that you can oversaturate the amount of resistance that an enemy has been buffed by. When your attack set alone can cause an enemy to drop to its lowest resist point, then adding more resistance does absolutely nothing. It doesn't. In order to improve performance, you have to improve the amount of damage that goes into attack. So slapping a resist buff on every single power and saying, well, it's underpowered because it does resist, is broken game design. You don't actually understand what the powers are doing. And I will keep needling the powers dev team. All of the Sonic powers in period need to go back and be rebalanced. The Sonic debuff powers need to have a Sonic debuff invention set. Burn the cottage, make resistance debuff enhanceable. Now you can make the AT modifier incredibly low. And yes, if you have to split effects, because on some algorithm somewhere plus resist is the same as minus resist, well, it's still broken game design. You're okay. I realize that I'm being obnoxious about bad game design that should have been fixed in issue 0, not being talked about being fixed decades later, or simply being made less broken. Let's try to focus on the build. Because I'm one of those people, I can easily rant about how bad Sonic is all day long, and you can be bored all day long listening to me rant. Now, my uh, Kinetic Sonic Defender took what did I take for a travel power? And the answer is I didn't. Because Kinetics gets a couple of travel powers of its own. It does get siphon speed, and it does get inertial reduction. So with 2 travel powers built in, and here we can see inertial reduction is available at level 28. Defenders get inertial reduction at level 18, significantly sooner. So you gotta wait a long while on a Corruptor before you have a travel power internal to the set. But if you're okay with using Siphon Speed early on, so we kind of want to keep an eye out and maybe think about, can we possibly fit in a travel power of some kind? And the short answer is going to be probably not. But we'll keep it in mind. All right. What other pool power did we take? We took leaping for combat jumping. We took leadership for maneuvers. We took speed for hasten. Now, straight up, we probably can safely drop hasten. I think the reason I personally took hasten was that I just couldn't imagine a kinetics build not being as fast as possible. And it's really more of a party trick. If I let's bring the defender build up for a second and go over some of the numbers very quickly. All right, Dreadful Will, the PBAOE nuke, and let's see, where is Hasten? There is Hasten. With Hasten turned off and Siphon Speed turned on, uh, Dreadful Whale goes off every 41 seconds. If I turn Hasten on, Dreadful Whale goes off every 35 seconds. So a 5-second decrease on the nuke. And that's really the only high recharge power that's in here. So if you're pumping out maximum damage, yeah, Hasten makes a lot of sense, but don't act you don't really need it. It's not really bringing that much to the party. So we probably can think about, on a corruptor at least, dropping. Uh, and the other thing we want to look at is Fulcrum Shift. Fulcrum Shift has a duration of 45 seconds, and with Hasten off, we have a recharge time of 18.36 seconds. So even without Hasten, we're already pretty much perma Fulcrum Shift. So the powers that we'd really want to be available are going to be available. Transference has a base recharge of 30 seconds. Without Hasten, it's at 8.21. With Hasten on, it's at 6.2, or worth it, 6.28? Yes, or 6.89. About a little under over 2 or so seconds. I'm not really sure I like the Razer having the mic button on the end of the mic, because I think every time you mute yourself, everyone can hear you clacking for the mute button. It's gotta mute. Where's that button? I much prefer the Steel series for the mute function, where the mute button is behind the ear casing, and it's easier to just click on and off without everybody hearing you tapping on the microphone. Stepping right up to the microphone, I said, hey now, there's only one way. All right, so we probably don't need Hasten. Hasten is probably going to be our safest drop to pick up a travel power very early on our Corruptor, because we're not going to get inertial reduction until very late. So what's going to make the most sense for our Kinetics? Speed? Well, since we're dropping Hasten, we may want to think about something that uh, not necessarily speed, but maybe something else that we can maybe drop at the same time. And that would be combat jumping. And so we're going to theoretically at this point, we're going to start arranging some powers, uh, preemptively arranging them. Siren Song, probably going to be late. We're only really using it because it's a sleep, does minor damage. I mean, really minor damage. Another one where rebalance it, add damage. Your equations are wrong. We're probably also looking, again, because we're on a Corruptor Defender, we are going to have to take Scorpion Shield to get anywhere. Uh, and so Scorpion Shield is probably going to come in at 41 for defense. And we do have Web Cocoon. Now, I did take Web Cocoon to make the Kinetic Sonic useful in a Rickety Warzone mothership raid. Is anybody that can add a hold to holding the dropship is very useful. So having a hold there that you also get a Empyrean Tomb out of it is a small bonus. And so that means we're probably once again taking Tough and Weave very late. So we're probably going to be looking at Kick around 26, and that gives us 18, 22, and 24. We probably uh, anything we can do down here. So 18 is going to be pretty early. We're just going to we're kind of right now in the positron task force range, and we're going to kind of break this and think about infiltration. And infiltration will give us our our luck of the gambler from combat jumping. And then we're going to probably be looking at maneuvers. So we need to go ahead and fit maneuvers in then. So we may not need combat jumping. We're not taking hasten. So we've possibly gotten both our defense and a travel power that we can augment. So we'll go ahead and plan on, well, we'll just leave infiltration. We'll go ahead and just do a defense endurance recharge all the way out. And then we'll do maneuvers, 4 slots, proc, defense endurance recharge, Kismet. Alright, siphon speed. We had 2 tempered readiness in here for a recovery. We probably don't need them, so we'll come back. We'll hold off on them for a while. Increased density, I only have a steadfast resistance proc in here. And amplify, I just had 2-shot with the Gaussian proc, and it was probably a 2-hit recharge. Although we really could just go with 2-hit buff endurance. Although that's kind of pointless as well. You know, could just do 2-hit buff. Doesn't really matter. It's almost not even the 2-item buff here, 7.5% speed boost. That really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Alright, so Siphon Power. Doesn't actually take any sets, so we'll just give it 1 accuracy all the way. Shout. We had a Defender ATO Defender ATO at 6. Shockwave. Shockwave, we already know that we're going to need to mitigate that knockback, so that has an overwhelming force set. We're probably going to go ahead and be preemptively slotting the overwhelming force. And I just realized you can't see half the screen. Let's move that back up. Okay, now you can see what I'm doing. Okay, siphon speed. Okay, we're passing on that howl. Howl. Where did I? Okay, howl. I was at 28 on the defender. Gonna preemptively go ahead and slot that out. With artillery. Alright, Scream. That was a 6 slot with Winter's Bite. And then Transfusion. That was going for the ranged defense. So that was all the way with a Numi proc. then on health, I had the preventative medicine proc and the panacea proc. All right, Shriek. Shriek got a defender ATO all the way out. We'll go ahead and just preemptively slot that to 6. Shout was a defender ATO. We'll just go ahead and keep that preemptively slotted. Inertial reduction was and speed boost. And I'm pretty sure we'll pick up some knockback protection. Inertial reduction. I took it one slot on. I only maxed it. Didn't bother with the endurance reduction. Well, I guess as a can, you can't really get away with that, so why not? Okay. So kick, just the recharge proc, turn it off. Siren Song was all the way out with Frozen Blast, so if nothing else, at least you had a chance for Immobilize at range. And then Dreadful Well, I did a full Avalanche in. And this is one of those powers where, yes, if you're stuck in the middle of a mob, which you have to be in order to use Dreadful Well, being able to just knock every enemy down so you have a moment to get away, probably a good thing. So, roll with what you got. Transference was 6 slots out. We're preemptive optimization. We already know we're probably not hitting our soft caps unless we have Weave running, and Weave is so late in the build. So we can safely go ahead and just plus these all the way. Alright, then Fulcrum Shift takes no set, so we just had a single accuracy enhancement and a single recharge enhancement. Scorpion Shield, it's 4 slots with, look at the Gambler proc, Reactive Defense Endurance, Reactive Defense Endurance Recharge, and Reactive Scale and Resist damage. Web Cocoon was all the way out with Superior Entomb for the energy negative and fire cold. And then tough was 3 slots. Only 2 of those were, we had an end resist, probably the proc, and then for whatever reason, I did the impervious skin status resistance regeneration. That may not be as useful as the having a little bit more endurance reduction or getting the extra knockback resist or knockback protection. And so Weave was 4 slots, and that was proc, Shield Wall, Defense Endurance, Shield Wall, Defense Endurance Recharge, Shield Wall, proc. Alright, so that just leaves Siphon Speed. No slots are left. And let's think about our Corruptor powers. One of us gives chance for negative energy, and the other is PBO at time E. We're probably want our chance for damage on our least performing power, which in this case would be Shriek. So that's where we'll plan on putting it, and we're already going deep for that range defense. Alright, and now before we slot the final ATO, let's see exactly where we're at. We'll bring up the Defender build and go back to our totals. And this is where we are at with our totals, and we'll do a quick check here. Freedom Phalanx, Portal Jockey. I do not actually appear to have an Incarnate Power turned on right now for this build. So this is without any Incarnate Powers. We're soft capped to Smashing, Lethal, Energy Negative, Fire, Cold, and Range defenses. How bad off is the Corruptor? Now, we've done a few things a little differently. Let's check it. Let's turn Scorpion Shield on. Maneuvers is on. Infiltration is on. Alright. Toggle for toggle. Maneuvers is on. Infiltration on. Scorpion Shield is on. Tough is on. Weave is on. We've got the procs in. And we can see that our Corruptor is only soft capped to energy damage. They're not even close on Smashing Lethal. Right, they're still 5% short on ranged and a lot short on fire cold. Now, if we slot in this, we get fire cold at the top end, but that's not going to be enough to close that gap, and that's not a ranged. It's not a ranged buffage. And just to check here for our defense power Well, sorry, I did not mean to just resize the window. Actually, maybe I'm a little bit larger so you can see all the... Okay, yeah. I can resize those windows. All right, there we go. Okay. So just to go down these real quickly, and we'll do info for info. On the Defender, or actually we'll look at effects. On the Defender, Maneuvers has a base of 3.5. Corruptor has a base of 2.63. Combat Jumping has a base of 2.5. Infiltration, that's not actually giving us a defensive buff, or at least it's not listing one. Let's check that. Let's turn Infiltration on and off. And Infiltration isn't actually changing our defense value, so we do know that Infiltration isn't giving us an accurate reading as to what it's doing. Now, since I have a build that is using Infiltration, we can take a look at it and have an idea of how much defense we should be adding based on Infiltration alone under attack conditions. So give me a second while I bring that character online, and we're going to, while I'm waiting on that, move our tank to another junction. And, all right, there we go. Let's check the other window. All right. And now let's bring you up. As Tequila. There you are. Let's resize the window so we can see everything you have to show us. All right. And as you can see, I never took infiltration off of this character. Let's go check. Infiltration doesn't have any slots in it. So what we're going to do is, am I sitting on a defense? Yes, I am. We'll just throw a defense buff into infiltration, and we'll check our powers, combat attributes, defense, hide power sources. Well, maybe not hide power sources. Okay, infiltration is giving us 0.215 defense. Let's see how much of that we lose on an attack. I want to leave combat attributes up, down to 0.94. So infiltration actually turned completely off and didn't give us anything. So now we know that infiltration is not going to give us any defense when we're under attack condition. So that idea kind of just went splat. All right, let's clear you out. And now let's start to rethink what we can do. Since now we know that infiltration isn't actually going to give us any stealth or isn't going to give us any defense. Let's also go ahead and count on needing agility radial in order to get anything. So we'll go for agility radial paracon. And now we can see that our defenses are looking a little better. We now only have a small gap to close on smashing lethal and ranged. All right, let's think about, we took, there's our kick, tough, weave. We took maneuvers. Going to think for a second about combat jumping. And we'll put a single slot in combat jumping. Okay, combat jumping alone almost closed the gap entirely. So what happens if we add a defense endurance and a defense? Do we actually improve? Okay, that does push us over smashing lethal. So, okay, what are our options from this point? Do we maybe go with stealth? Because we know that stealth gives us another place to put some defense. And we know that we keep some stealth. It doesn't actually give us a travel power. And we can go ahead and close that fire cold cap by taking Scourging Blast all the way out. Check our totals. Okay. And we got one slot to play with. If we do combat jumping, just defense, where does that get us? Just barely over. We're still not quite there on negative. All right, for an actual travel power, we're gonna just move siphon speed down. All right, speed of sound. Speed of sound could be interesting. All right, we'll do tempered readiness. Or actually, yeah. We have accuracy, endurance, right, speed of sound. We're thinking about blessing of the Zephyr. And that gives us a little bit more of a. Okay, I think we're there. Let's fill these in. All right, we do need agility to get there. But there we have our defender version turned into a corruptor version, and we are able to get mostly the same defensive values. We're not quite to negative soft cap. We're not quite to AoE soft cap. Well, neither is the defender. But the defender's not using an incarnate power to cover that gap, and it's a little bit further over the edge. But that's probably a workable build to get you the maximum amount of output. So we'll save that. Save as Corruptor, Sonic Attack Kinetics Revision 1. Alright. And we'll go ahead and turn the we'll turn that off. And now let's, and this is the part this is always going to be not going to go well. Look at the build that that player two, that the second player was asking for builds was given. And it's not pretty. There it is. A Sonic Kin Corruptor. And you can see here, okay, they skipped Siren Song instead of Screech. They skipped Siphon Power. And they skipped Inertial Reduction. So they skipped their travel power. They took Hover and Fly on a Kinetics. Not a good. Okay, this is one of the reasons why I took on the Corruptor. Why I took the speed of sound, because as a kinetics, you not only can siphon other enemy speed and move yourself using siphon speed, you can give yourself players, but one of your key things is that transference, transfusion, and fulcrum shift all require the player, if they are able to take advantage of the powers, they have to be in melee range of the enemy. And if you are on a fly character, getting in melee range is very difficult. Now you can get around that with Mystic Flight, because Mystic Flight has a teleport built in. You can just teleport in, do your PBOE, and get out. But if you're a kinetics, you've got inertial reduction. You've already got siphon speed. You can get in and you can get out entirely on your own. Speed of sound, by giving you the teleport, gives you yet another option to express just how fast you are. You can get in, you can get out, you can drop your buffs, you can get wherever. And and the other thing is, this is uh I'm going to show this on the corruptor build first. We're going to bring back up fulcrum shift, and we're going to go to foes hit, and we're going to maximize foes hit. And our damage buff is 2000% damage buff smashing to ally. This is on a power with a 45-second recharge, or 45-second duration, 25-second recharge. Basically, what this means is that in a full mob, you are soft capped. You are, sorry, not soft. You are hard capped to damage. And this is one of the few places where corruptors actually have an edge over defenders, because the corruptors' damage boost, the amount of buff they can take in damage, is higher than the defenders. It's actually high enough that despite being weaker everywhere else, a corruptor with full saturated fulcrum shift will do more damage than a defender. period. And because their damage boost is so high, their damage cap is so high, and they can actually hit that cap. So going back and looking at the terrible build in the background, it went with Soul Drain. It went with Dark Consumption. You've already got very powerful endurance return on transference. You've already got very powerful heal return on transfusion. You've already got a cap your damage in one shot with Fulcrum Shift, which is already perma. There's no reason to take Dark Consumption or Soul Drain. But okay, let's make sure we've got all the toggles turned on. Combat jumping is turned on. Hover was taken at level 49. Hover is turned on. Maneuvers is taken at 24. Maneuvers is turned on. And let's go ahead and look at the corruptor totals. uh, uh, yeah. Um, yeah. Don't do this. Just don't do this. All right, this has been Aurian Archive, and once I realize I'm being a prat by showing somebody else's build, and I know I stopped doing this for a reason because the difference gap between one of my builds and something somebody else made is night and day difference. But that's why it's also I think it's important to go over why various slotting decisions are made, why you want to spend slots on these powers, why you want to use these enhancements, and this does go back into the continued rant about build homogenization. If the current power developers are actually concerned about all the builds looking the same and everybody using the same template for everything, more options, more powers, more enhancements with good buffs, buffs that actually improve a character, and burn the cottage. Burn the cottage. Just take a flamethrower, take a torch, set a fire tank in the middle of the cottage, and burn it. Because this is one of the things where I really would like this player's build to be an option where you could actually go with a resist based build where if you went with resist, you got status protection because you took a resist power. Because if you went that way, that would open up all the other tertiary power pools. If resist just had status protection built in, that wouldn't be enough to justify the rest of the powers, which need their own reworks, but it's a big step forward to make those kinds of builds applicable. When you're deliberately hurting your player, your character, when you're making your character deliberately weaker to stick to a concept, the game balance and design itself is fundamentally broken, and that has to be fixed first. Burn the cottage, rip it down, say this has got to be fixed at a base level first. And I'm probably going to be screaming that even more when I get to the final build, which will be coming up shortly. I'm Aurian Archive, and I'll catch you later.